Hey everybody, let me readjust this camera here so that we can talk. All right, now I'm wearing a microphone, all right, because it is raining and the sound of the rain hitting the tarp, I don't want it to mess the video up too bad. I want you to be able to understand what I'm saying. Now, I think a while back my regular viewers knew that I was working on my gear room, remodeling it. Well, on that side of my basement, I waterproofed it. It involves jackhammering and mortar mix and hydraulic cement and waterproof paint, and it's like a 3 or 4 step process. And it worked perfect. So I wound up doing the other 3 rooms of my basement. So the whole basement's tore apart and everything's piled into the gear room. So my camping gear is kind of hard to get to, and I'm working on the basement, and not to mention it's raining, and rain makes bad videos. I mean, I can get by with camping in the rain, no problem, but making videos is horrible. I hate doing it. I don't like doing it in the rain. So anyway, to the point of the video, I was tagged by Ghost Honda to do, it's a Show Your Steak Challenge. Show how you cook steak, and it's to raise awareness of men's mental health. All right. Now, I've rambled on here for the first, 2 minutes, but I am going to talk a lot about men's mental health because it's a pretty important topic. And I think this tag was started, the whole idea was started by Haze Outdoors, and H-A-Z-E. Now, Haze Outdoors, it was a good idea, it's a good thing. And I'll get into more of why it's a good thing. But anyway, Ghost Honda, I want to say something about Ghost Honda, okay? There's people on YouTube that are huge, and then there's medium-sized YouTubers like me. I consider 100,000 subs medium because Joe Robinette's got 700,000 or 800,000, and Survival Lily's got like 700,000, and they're the big YouTubers in my book, and of course Dave Canterbury. And then, if you get on down into the YouTubers that don't have many subs, those are the ones that, there's some gems out there. There's some real jewels. There's some people that are just incredible. And I know a lot of the bigger YouTubers, they like to entertain you and they like to review gear and things like that. But Ghost Honda is the guy. If you're ever wondering who I respect, it's Ghost Honda. Because if you want an actual education, if you want to further your education, especially on friction fire, he is the man to watch. He's always amazed me because with the bow drill and the hand drill, I've always kind of stuck to my go-to spindles and things. But he just experiments with everything, and he just impresses me. So if you want an education, visit Ghost Honda. He's the guy that I really think a lot of. All right, now real quick, I think, let's see here. Let me take some of this stuff out of here. I gotta start warming up my pan ahead of time for this challenge. And the cool thing about this microphone is I ain't got to be looking at the camera and screaming at it while I'm doing what I'm doing. But now I've got a fire going over here, is what you've seen. And I'm gonna take my cast iron pan. Now during the summertime, I like to grill. I like grilled steaks. But during the wintertime, that's when you break out the old pan here and start pan frying steaks. And I usually keep mine all lubed up with oil and then keep it wrapped up in a clear plastic when I am not using it. That way it'll stay nice and seasoned. So what I'm going to do here, let's ease the camera over towards the fire. Whoop, a little bit too close. Let's ease it back up. And I'm just going to take it and set it in the fire. Let's move this over. All right, now I'm just going to set that, I got that in fire, and I'm going to let that start warming up a little bit. Once it gets pretty warm, then we'll start cooking. All right, men's mental health. Now, let's talk about that for a little bit. With women, this is aimed towards men, because with women have no problem with talking about their problems, sharing their feelings. Sometimes if women have a woman friend, they can talk about these things, but men just don't do it. Men keep it bottled up. Men don't share their problems, they don't share their feelings. They have their ways of working it out, and for some men, it's okay. for some it's not. For some it's depression, and for sometimes that depression can turn into homicidal or suicidal tendencies, which from my experience and some of the stories that I'm going to share, just not big details, I'm just going to kind of share what I can. And I'm not going to mention any names because there's a lot of people from my hometown that watch my videos. So anyway, back to men's health, men's mental health. If a man has permanent mental problems, all right, and this up here don't function right, that's called DD, okay? That is a DD patient that is developmentally disabled. And I've been around some people like that, and you know, so they're just going to be like that forever, because whatever their brain chemistry is that makes them like they are, it's you know, it's abnormal, and so they're like that for life. Now, with seemingly normal men, things can go wrong, and lots of times it's due to loss of a job, loss of a child, loss of a loved one, loss of a house, loss of anything, and it can send you into deep, dark depression. And that's a bad thing. That's a real bad thing. And I'm going to share a few stories on that, one at a time on this. And for me, I've been around a lot. I've met a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of people. I've worked in a lot of plants, a lot of industries. I was in Boy Scouts. I've been to several churches. And it amazes me, thinking back and looking back, at the amount of people that you think you know and you don't really know them. And you know, that's kind of evident just from the way people hide it. And I don't know what the cure is, and I don't know if you can see the signs or not, because some people think you can see the signs, but sometimes you can't. For me, I try not to get depressed, because no matter how stupid or crazy it is, find ways of beating depression. Find ways of beating the demons. You know, if it is, find a favorite TV show, you know, for like me, watch 80s music videos, you know, or camp, cook, you know, whatever, make videos, you know, find some kind of a way, find some outlet to keep your brain uplifted, to help your mental state. And don't be afraid to lean on loved ones, you know. Don't be afraid to talk to them. So I think this pan is hot enough. So let's put the butter in there and let's get to talking about it. I think it's safe to move the camera a little bit under the tarp more so that we can kind of film as we go. And warm, and I'm just going to leave it there. And let's see. First thing I'm going to do is take some butter. All right, we're going to throw the butter in the pan. I hope that pan ain't too hot. Now I got a half a stick of butter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put half of it in there and let it melt. Now you want your steak to rest ahead of time. You want your steak to rest ahead of time before you put it in. So let's take about half of this stick of butter, throw it in. I'm going to save this other half for here in a minute. Don't you love the sound of butter bubbling and boiling? Boil and bubble, toil and trouble. All right. Now, let's get this here. Pull this up. Need to kind of level the pan up a little bit if I can. That may not be easy to do. That's a problem with cooking like this. All right, now on the steak, I got me a good old juicy ribeye here. Now the best way to do this, I've done it the second best way you can do it. The best way you can do this thing is to put it in a baggie and cover it with black pepper and kosher salt or sea salt, not table salt. I didn't have any kosher salt, so I used Lawry's seasoning salt. And what I did is I've thrown it in there and I've let it set for 30 minutes out in the open. So that's what I'm going to do with it now. All right. Let's see. Let me get this thing pushed down in there. Look at all that delicious butter. Now, due to the firewood being wet, I had to start this fire up like really early. just to get it down to where there's coals here burning, because the coals is what's perfect for this. Now, contrary to grilling, when you cook it in butter like this, you either want to take a spoon and spoon it over the top, or what you want to do is you want to keep constantly flipping it. That's how you get a nice juicy steak. Keep spinning it around in that good old butter. Man, that's some good steak. This is going to be so delicious. Look at that, the color, it's already good. Oh man. Yeah, I wished I could have gone out in the woods and done this, but you know how it is. There's just never any time to do anything. Busy, busy, busy. But I don't let that depress me. Depression is a bad thing. And that's what we're here to discuss. Well, mental health. And to me, mental health is all about that. Oh, this is going to be so good. All right, now I'm going to cut the camera back off, and then I'm going to cut it back on, because we're going to spend 8 minutes talking. Now I'm going to spend 4 minutes talking. Now I'm going to give this 8 minutes. All right, I'm going to stop it here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for like 5 minutes while you're watching the steak cook. And I'm going to tell a story, a very depressing story, while I am cooking this steak. Man, that smoke is killing me. I thought the smoke would be gone by now. All right, I'm gonna tell a really depressing story, and I'm not gonna name names because these are such depressing stories. Let me move this over here. I really need to move that. Man, it's hard to pay attention and cook a good steak while I'm cooking, you know that? Pan's done got crooked because the fire's gone down. But that's okay, because my camera is showing what time it is. All right, I'm gonna start out with my first story while I'm cooking this. I'm gonna depress you while you're looking at this steak. There was these two guys that I went to high school with. One of them had red hair, one of them had blonde hair. Now, I'm just gonna call him Red and Blondie, okay? And these two guys were the funniest humans I've ever been around in my life. They never got any fights in school. They were always getting along with everybody. They were great guys. All right. Well, I had another friend that was a year younger than him, and he had told me the story of what happened. I read about it in the paper, but I didn't know who it was. Well, Blondie, his parents got divorced, and his mom just kind of laid around for a while and didn't do nothing. Well, she wound up going through some sort of phase to where she lost a bunch of weight, got her hair dyed, bought a convertible Mustang, and just started riding around and enjoying life and acting young again. So that was great. So she wound up meeting some guy when she was 66 years old, and she was in good health. She looked good. She was living a good life. She met some guy that's 40 years old that took a fancy to her, and he moved in, and he was on drugs, and she didn't realize he was on drugs. Well, next thing you know, she was funding his drug habit, and it was bad. It got to the point to where when she was trying to get him off of drugs, and there he was living with her, and they were in a relationship, he wound up shooting her and taking all of her jewelry and taking all of her valuable possessions, and he hopped in the Mustang and he headed for Florida, and the authorities called him. Well, Blondie, my friend, got so depressed, his mental state got into such a deep, dark depression that he wound up committing suicide. So, loss of a mother in such a tragic way like that ruined his mental state. I don't know what his mental state was to the point. I've still got my mom. It's bad enough when a parent dies, but when they get murdered, it's horrible. That's just terrible. It's absolutely horrible. All right, so let me look at the camera. It's 3:24. All right, the other story. I was working in this one place, and the guy I worked with, some coworkers you don't like. Well, the coworker that I had slowly became my best friend. He was a really good guy. I really liked this guy. I got along with him good. His brother-in-law worked there with us, and his brother's mom, which was my friend's stepmom, no, mother-in-law, worked there too. They all three worked there. Well, this guy, I'm gonna call him Hot Rod. All right, this guy's name's Hot Rod. Hot Rod was married and had 2 kids. Okay, he was a very happy guy. Always seemed real happy. At least I thought he was happy. Everybody thought he was happy. My friend thought he was happy. So, my friend and his wife, and Hot Rod and his wife, they loved Florida and they went to Florida all the time. All right, so they went to Florida, had a good time. Me and my friend was on 2nd shift, and his brother-in-law was on 3rd shift. So they went and spent the weekend in Florida. Life was good. They were happy. Hot Rod and his wife had to leave a day, had to leave 16 hours early to get back so that he could work 16 hours. I mean, so he could work his 3rd shift. Well, things were fine. Well, sure enough, in the middle of the night, my friend got a call, and my friend's mom, they got a call while they're in Florida in a motel room, asked if they were related to so-and-so and so-and-so. Well, turns out that after the little trip to Florida, they came back to their house, and Hot Rod shot his wife in the head and then shot himself in the head, and they found both of them dead. Now, I knew Hot Rod. I talked to him during shift change. He always came in there and talked to me and my friend as we were getting off 2nd shift, and he was leaving, and he always seemed normal, always seemed like, you know, not a care in the world. Now, what is it that changed his mental state? What is it that caused him to do these things? I don't know, but I mean, I'm telling you, his mental health was shot. There was something going on in his brain, something bad. All right, let me look at the camera. It is 5. It's fixing to be 6 minutes. Let's go 1 more minute with a quick story. I got 2 more very short stories. Okay, there was another guy that was a friend of a friend, and he was very well known. And years ago, when I was into hot rods, we were all into hot rods, and we used to go and hang around in a parking lot uptown. And we used to hang around in a parking lot uptown. And so this guy, he was about 300 or 350 pounds. He was a big guy, big old huge overweight guy, had health problems. But he was a happy guy. He was a very, very happy guy. Well, slowly, one by one, everybody got girlfriends. Everybody got married. Everybody quit hanging around in them parking lots. And as that happened, there was no one left but the big guy. And the big guy never did get a girlfriend. And I guess it was his weight problems. So anyway, he got so depressed. He was just such a happy guy. He got so depressed that he wound up committing suicide. Now, my friend was around him. I wasn't. But my friend said he didn't understand what were the signs of his symptoms. He said he didn't show any kind of depression. He didn't show any kind of sadness. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I haven't got a clue. All right, now this has been on 7 minutes. Okay, let's take this out and let it rest. It's supposed to rest for at least 15 minutes. So I'm going to show you the next step here in a minute. Let's see here. Now what I'm going to do, all right, got this on camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this steak out, and I'm going to put it on a plate, and then I'm going to cover it up. I'm going to let it rest. Okay? I'm going to let that sit for a little while and rest. Let's put it over here. Now the next step's while you have the pan on. All right. Before I cut the camera off, throw in more butter. And put in a little bit of beef broth. Now that's going to make a lot right there. Now what you want to do is you want to move this stuff all around in here. And you're going to let that simmer. I'm going to let that simmer down into a nice juicy mess so that it thickens up, and when it thickens up, then I'll pour it over the steak. Show you that in a minute too. And I hope my battery's not going dead on my microphone. because like I said, the sound of the rain on the tarp makes a terrible video. It screws the audio up. All right, I have a couple of more little stories here. All right, now there was a friend of mine that I went to high school with, and well, I went to school with her sister was in my grade, and then she was in the grade below me, and we were all in the band together, so we were all friends. So, you know, it's just somebody I grew up with, and I knew both of them. You know, I'd known them all my life throughout school, and I read in the paper about this guy that died, and I read his name, and then I saw who he was married to, and I was like, oh man, this guy, he was 30-something years old and he died. And so I bumped into her about a year later, and I asked her, I said, you know, what happened to him? And it turned out that he was working at we had several mills here in my hometown that closed. There was a denim mill that closed, a cotton mill that closed, a fabric mill that closed, and 2 carpet mills. All right, so this guy, all he knew was work, you know, support his family. So he had a job at one of the local yarn mills, and when it closed, he fell into a deep depression, and money was tight, and they almost lost their house, and then, hallelujah, he got another job. And he got a job at a brand new plant, okay? So he thought he had a good future going. It was a plant that took 2-liter bottles and Coke bottles and plastics, and it chopped them up and melted them down and fed them through a machine and made fibers and made carpet out of it. Brand new, multi-high-dollar facility. So life is good again. He's got a job, he's working, life picked back up. And then that plant closed within about a year. And it sent him into a deep depression. And she knew he was depressed. And so he kept trying to get another job, kept trying to get another job, and he never could. Well, you know, she was working, she got a job at a sandwich shop. And you know, one day when their kids were at school and she was at the sandwich shop, he committed suicide. And that was a case that she said she knew he was spiraling downhill quick, but there was nothing she could do about it. Nothing made him happy. Nothing gave him an outlook. And me personally, I was going through a plant closing one time, and thankfully I got another job. And I remember the gut feeling I had, the terrible feeling. You know, it's a terrible feeling losing a job, you know. But anyway, oh, I better look over here at this. All right, I got to stir this stuff up. This stuff may not thicken up like it should. I forgot about it because I was talking. All right, now the last story, there may be other stories, but I have a coworker at work now, and he loves where he works. And he was working at a place, it was a meat processing plant in, man, I forgot where he said it was. I was in South Georgia. And he said that it was a great place to work, believe it or not, because he said that during the summer they worked 4 days a week, and then during the winter they worked 6 days a week, which it didn't matter because there was nothing to do in the winter anyway. And he said that they got paid the same every week, and he said it was great because everybody there, they hunted, they fished, they camped, they spent time with their families. It was a good job. And so he said they announced the plant closing, and the plant was the only thing there in that little town. He said 3 of his friends had committed suicide from the plant closing. Now, that's a mental thing. What mental state of depression and despair were they going through? Who did they talk to? Who did they not talk to? What could they not talk about? It's depressing, I'm telling you. So, anyway, this one guy, he actually talked to the person's son at the funeral. And through the tears, they mustered up the energy to say, the guy's dad worked first shift at the meat processing plant, and the guy's mom worked second shift. And so when they announced the closing, the guy went home and just sat on the couch and just stared at the wall. And his son was like, you know, Dad, what's going on? What's going on? And Dad just said, they're closing the plant. And the son was horrified. He didn't know what to think. So when the mom got off second shift and came home, she walked in, and the dad pulled out a gun, and aimed it at her and pulled the trigger and shot her in the head. And then he stuck it to his own head and pulled the trigger. And I mean, it's just, what kind of mental despair is that? You know? I've been blessed with a pretty good life, and I've always managed to keep a job, and I haven't had that much tragedy in my life. My life's been rough, but it ain't been tragedy. So I haven't suffered with that much mental health issues, but I've seen it. And if you can ever see it and identify it, please do something about it. Because these, you know, the outcome of mental issues is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So those are my stories. That's me talking about it, you know. Very depressing. You can't see the signs always. Somehow or another, you just got to keep a happy outlook in life. Nope. Stuff's starting to simmer up a little bit. All right, let me get the camera back down here to where you can kind of see what we're doing. All right, that stuff did not thicken up like I wanted it to. So, oh well. How depressing. All right, now let's see what we're going to do next. I'm going to show you what it's supposed to look like. I don't know if it will or not. Let's ease over here and take a look at the steak. Now what it's supposed to look like, oh, it smells so good. Nope, don't even have to adjust the camera. Let's take a fork right here. Now what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take this meat after it has rested, and you're supposed to, oh, this stuff's just falling apart. It's so tender. You're supposed to make slices in this and slice this together. Of course, things don't always work out on video like I should. And then what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take this beef broth and butter You're supposed to take the beef broth and butter and you're supposed to pour it over it. Now this is, I believe this is too thick. Yeah, that's too thick. Well, anyway, I tried. That's what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to thicken up, but it didn't. Pretty sure somebody out there is going to tell me what I did wrong. They always do. All right, let's take a little meaty morsel of this here. Let's just take it off the end down here. The thing I like about these T-bones is they're just riddled, marbled with fat. All right, let me move. Let me put the camera on me so you can watch me eat. All right, let's see. Slopping around in all that. Look at that. It's 40 degrees outside and raining. Mm. 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 Oh, wow. Oh, man. Mm. Mm, 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 mm. Mm. That is delicious. Man, that's so good. Mm. He could eat that with no teeth. But old Dave's got his teeth. Mm. That's so good. That is a delicious steak. Hey, look. The steam coming off that. That is so good. Mm-mm. I love steak. All right. Oh my God, getting fat between my teeth. Now, I'm not going to tag anybody, okay? YouTube kind of ruined the way you tag people because they did away with the private messages. So, if you're a video maker and you want to be tagged and you want to do this, tell me in the comment section. and I will add you to my info box as being tagged if you want to talk about it. Women video makers, if you want to do it. Be tagged. Maybe you've had an experience with a husband or a brother or a son. Anybody can add to this. You know, the more we all share, the more we're willing to talk about it, the better off we are, because people just ain't willing to talk. But I talked, and now I shall eat. I shall. See you in the next one.